Well, welcome back to my reviews. I know if you've watched any of my older videos with toy soldiers and that in them, you'll have heard me mention Herald, a plastic figure company out of England. Run by M. Zhang, M-Y-E-R, Meyer Zhang. Trade name was M. Zhang. And they were producing plastic figures early in the 50s out of polythene, which was a lot different than PVC, which came later with Britons and different outfits. I have a few of the figures, but not a lot. One of them is this set called Indian Encampment. It's from about 1953-54. Consists of a Indian chief, or at least a male in full regalia, the headdress and all. A young Indian woman with a papoose. One way to tell an early figure too is by the paint schemes on these. By 1959, they went to reduce paint schemes on most of their figures. And that was after Britons bought this company out and took them over because they needed the plastic production. Their lead soldiers were going out of favor, and by '66 all the lead was pretty well gone. At least it wasn't being manufactured anymore. Yeah, they got a campfire here with a pot boiling and a kettle. And there's another, must be a prominent Indian because he's got the pipe. One thing that stood out on the Herald figures was the sculpting. There was lots of detail sculpted in. And they had a totem pole. And a teepee. Nice little model. All these figures were farmed out to Hong Kong eventually with less paint and lower production costs. Another one of their nice models is Indian chief on horseback with a spear with feathers on it. large headdress, painted face. Lots of detailed painting. Like I said, you can tell it's an early figure when they're like that. And this is a facsimile of a early Herald box, which would hold a single figure. Mounted Indian chief with spear. That's him. And you could get a mounted Indian with bow and arrow. Excuse me. You could get a mounted Indian with bow and arrow. Mounted cowboy with lasso. And a mounted bandit being chased. He's shooting to the rear of him, shooting his pistol to the rear. That's what that picture there depicts, is him. And there's the mounted Indian chief with spear. So all in all, they were very nice figures, and because Britain wanted into the plastics, you could see why they would want to get a hold of that outfit who was already in production with plastic. And Britain's had a sculptor by the name of Roy Selwyn Smith who was very good. And it actually worked for Zhang earlier before he went with Britain's. So that was the Indian encampment, the mounted chief with spear, and a facsimile box. Herald models. A Zhang product. Some more of the Herald figures that were nice are what they call the Herald, or what they call the Trojans, but they weren't actually Trojans, according to the sculptor who originally did the sculpting for the figures, for the masters. Apparently on a train ride into London, or at the time he worked, he used to read a lot of Homer. And he read the Iliad, and he based these figures on characters. And the Odyssey was the other book he read many times. So apparently his figures in this set were based on characters from the books. This was in 1957, and by that time all Herald figures were registered with the company. But they couldn't claim these to be Greeks because can't claim a copyright on Greeks. These were all men from actual men, based on actual men from the Iliad. This was based on Agamemnon. They call him Trojan general on horseback. And this was Hector with the spear. It's made in England, but it's got a reduced paint scheme. These guys were made in Hong Kong, based on Paris from the Iliad. His name, not the city. And Achilles with the shield held forward, which would be him. And Odysseus with the cloak. It's kind of neat, I never knew that. I got this book a while ago from a guy I know in England, the Herald Civilian Models, Golden Years, 1953 to 61, by Barney Brown and Peter Cole. And it's full of pictures of their figures and just history on everything. History on Zhang and Herald, and then when Britons took over the Herald Company eventually. So it's quite interesting. Well, anyways, I hope you enjoyed a short review of early Herald figures, some of the history of the company. Polythene tended to harden up over the years and become breakable, so eventually, which led to using PVC in their figures, like most other companies. Had more strength and didn't harden up over time. Anyways, let's look at the few Herald figures I have. And I hope you enjoyed the review. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.